During a recent conversation with Wendy Rhodes, guitar virtuoso Yngwie Malmsteen has denied being egocentric, saying that his approach to making music is often misunderstood. The guitarist said, "I compose the guitar parts, obviously, but also the bass, drums, keyboards, vocals, melody, and lyrics. Sometimes people misunderstand my MO like I'm being egotistical, but it's not that. It's an artistic thing. Like a painter doesn't let someone paint the background and he does the foreground. The painter paints the whole picture. And that's how I work." This isn't the first time Yngwie insisted he's in full control of his creative work. While explaining how he started to sing in his solo band because he got tired of his singer's bullshit, the guitarist said earlier this month, "I always thought that singers have the Elvis Presley syndrome. They think they're Elvis Presley. They're not Elvis Presley. Because I write the music, I write the lyrics, I write the vocal melody lines, I write everything. Just because I let somebody sing something doesn't mean they're more important than the bass player or the keyboard player or the drummer. Because I write all the parts, I write the drum parts, the bass parts, the keyboard parts, the guitar parts, and the vocal parts, like a classical composer. And I really kind of got tired of dealing with their bullshit, really. So I decided to sing myself." Blackmore was asked in an interview with Guitar World magazine what he thought about Yngwie Malmsteen, as he often credits him as a big influence. "He's always been very nice to me, and I always get on very well with him. I don't understand him, though, his playing, what he wears. His movements are also a bit creepy. Normally you say, well, the guy's just an idiot. But, when you hear him play you think, this guy's no idiot. He knows what he's doing. He's got to calm down. He's not Paganini, though he thinks he is. When Yngwie can break all of his strings but one, and play the same piece on one string, then I'll be impressed. In 3 or 4 years, we'll probably hear some good stuff from him." He also gave his opinion on guitar tapping, and how he is happy to see the last of it. "Thank goodness it's come to an end. The first person I saw doing that hammer-on stuff was Harvey Mandel, at the Whiskey A Go-Go in '68. I thought, what the hell is he doing? It was so funny, laughs. Jim Morrison was carried up because he was shouting abuse at the band. Jimi Hendrix was there. We were all getting drunk. Then Harvey Mandel starts doing this stuff, mimes tapping. What's he doing? Everybody was saying. Even the audience stopped dancing." Joe Satriani recently spoke about what it was like to replace Ritchie Blackmore in Deep Purple from 1993 and '94, admitting it was a bit of an intimidating gig. He said, "I did feel a bit like a rookie. I was just a couple of years into the sort of accidental career as an instrumentalist, and then all of a sudden I get this call to replace a legend. You can't replace somebody like Ritchie Blackmore. So I kind of knew it was gonna be a thankless job from the fans' point of view, who have already bought tickets to the shows. There was a level of uncomfortableness, but I think it was all in my head. I think anybody who walks out on stage knowing that they're not the guy that the audience knows and loves, that they're the replacement, they've got a little mental game they've got to play every night they're on stage. They have to kinda try not to think like the audience. But I couldn't help it. I was such a big fan of Deep Purple and such a great fan of Ritchie Blackmore. There was a lot of sort of internal battles going on where every time I go to play Smoke on the Water, I would just hear every single note in detail that Ritchie played and I kept thinking, why play it any different? That's perfect. But, of course, the guys in the band really wanted me to be Joe. They just kept saying, do whatever you want, Joe. We'd love to hear your style over this. Forget about Ritchie. And it was impossible for me because I grew up listening and trying to imitate Ritchie Blackmore, as any young kid my age would, growing up when I did. So the experience was exhilarating. It was super fun because I was so excited to play with a legendary band, still mildly starstruck, even though I got to know these guys very well."
On Vancouver radio station CFOX, Metallica's Kirk Hammett spoke fairly candidly about his experience taking guitar lessons with Joe Satriani. "It was actually very poignant," Hammett said of his first lesson with Satriani. "His first lesson to me was, learn your lesson. Don't waste your time, don't waste my time. I expect you to know everything that I gave you in a week's time." I was like, this guy is serious. But you know what? I did it, and he kicked my ass. But after a while, I was taking 2 lessons a week from him. I became so thirsty for what he had to offer me, I was just like, bring it on. It's all making sense. I want to learn more. Hammett then discussed Satriani as a player, saying ever since I first met him, he's always played incredibly, with all the sounds and all the bar stuff and tapping and crazy licks that no one's ever played and still probably never plays. I mean, he's just such a unique individual as a musician. Joe Satriani commented on Ritchie Blackmore calling him a soulless, too polished player in an archived interview that was recently published out into the open. Joe Satriani said to Mitch Laffin, via Blabbermouth, "Well, it's unfortunate when somebody that you look up to has something negative to say about you. So that part will always hurt. I wouldn't hide my feelings about that. I get criticized on both sides of the fence for the opposite offenses. And I don't quite understand it other than most of the time, when someone has criticism, it's because they're challenged and they feel that they have to strike out. So I get it, I understand why he would have to say something negative. I can kind of laugh at it because I'm not like that myself. I tend to just look at the positive of another musician and focus on that." This is what Ritchie Blackmore said about Joe Satriani.
To me, listen to Joe Satriani, he is a brilliant player. But I never really hear him searching for notes. I never hear him playing maybe a wrong note. Jimi Hendrix used to play lots of wrong notes because he was searching all the time. Where the hell is that correct note? And when he did find that right note, wow, that was incredible. But if you're always playing the correct notes, there's something wrong. You're not searching, you're not reaching for anything. But that's not to say that he is a very brilliant player, same as Steve Morse, fantastic player. I'm just glad they found a guitar player to carry on, because I thought I was going to be shackled to this band for the rest of my life. You know, it was like a ball and chain thing. And luckily they said, "Oh, we found someone. Thank God I can get out." You know. I think that I haven't listened much. I just know that Joe Satriani and Steve Morse are brilliant players, and I remember Steve Morse with the Dixie Dregs, fantastic stuff. I think what you mean maybe that certain people play from the heart and other people play from the head. I prefer a heart player. I prefer someone like a blues player with the guy that plays Jeff Healey. Jeff Healey, I think, is tremendous. I think the John Mayall guy is great too. People like that I prefer. If I hear someone really technical and running up and down the fingerboard, I can hear that for a couple of minutes. Then I start to get kind of bored and I'm thinking of other things, like playing football or something. But I do like to hear someone reaching for something, you know, not quite making it, and sometimes they do make it, and they're very polished. Like with Joe Satriani, it's a very polished player, almost too polished. That's what worries me sometimes. But it's different strokes for different folks, as an enemy of mine used to say, which is such a corny saying. It's whatever. Some people are into that head music, that head technique. Some people are into the heart technique. Some people are into blues technique. I personally am into the minstrel technique. If I hear someone playing a lute or playing a crumb horn, it just moves me. I don't know why. Guitar players I find kind of boring. And that's not meant as a dig. I find myself boring, and I have to go and lock myself away. The guitar is a wonderful instrument in certain ways. Like if you're listening to someone like John Williams play, then you know the man can play. And he will play a fast piece or slow piece. He will emote. He has it down. That's just awe-inspiring to hear someone like that. I think the main objective is to make people think in their heart. I personally am not interested in appealing to other musicians. To me it's more inspiring to move someone who doesn't know anything about music but has feel. They can say, I don't know what you're doing, but I just feel there's something there. That to me is an incredible compliment, whereas opposed to, well, you just run up and down the fingerboard, that's wonderful, very fast. Really all that means is I've just practiced the hell out of the guitar. I'm not really saying anything. I'm going from A to B, but not seeing anything on the way.
Tool frontman Maynard Keenan said that very technical players like Joe Satriani aren't his cup of tea, noting they lack humanity and tend to be a little stiff by his standards. The musician told Destroy All Lines, "I've worked with a lot of people over the years that are very technical and very good at what they do, but they are not necessarily creative. The creative force is where some of the best music comes from. Not from guys who, no disrespect to Joe Satriani, those kind of very technical, school players, I think a lot of times they lack humanity. There's not a lot of breath that comes out of the music that I hear from, I don't want to say educated, indoctrinated musicians tend to be a little stiff. That living, breathing interaction with mistakes, with not necessarily perfect approaches, that tends to give the music the character that melds really well. If you do it right, it melds well with the digital." Not only that, but Maynard also expressed his opinions recently on how most musicians today have a problem with being too one-dimensional, explaining the whole issue to Rolling Stone, saying, "I think bands in general, not necessarily the ones I'm involved in, but I think bands in general kind of have the discipline enough to learn how to play their instrument. And they have some kind of accolades or positive reinforcement for some achievements they might have had early on. Playing guitar, playing drums, so you know, as human beings you like that praise, you like those accolades. So you pursue it more to get more of those things." He added, "But in general, most musicians nowadays, and in recent history, they lack the discipline outside of that one discipline. So in a way, they're one-dimensional, so when success comes, they don't have the faintest idea how to deal with it. And most of them implode. Most of them fall apart. They didn't have the discipline back then, they just had the discipline on what their single focus was, whatever instrument it was." Mastodon guitarist Bill Keller admitted he's not the biggest fan of such guitar masters like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, saying that although they are insane guitar players, their style kind of bores him. Asked by Total Guitar on where do you find most players are going wrong, Bill replied, "A big mistake people often make is trying to add too many notes and overcomplicating their ideas. I always try to tell people that it's best to come up with a simple rhythmic idea and then paint in the higher notes to make these tiny adjustments into new chords, using notes as semitone out. That can make all the difference to a song. It's not about how fast you play. A lot of people just know scales. Look at Joe Satriani or Steve Vai, they're both insane guitar players, but I went to see Satch once, and I got bored after a couple of minutes. All he did was shred through scales constantly. I guess it sounds cool if you're into it, but I was thinking, play a goddamn riff. I guess that makes me a riff guy." During the rest of the chat, Keller further discussed the importance of mastering the rhythm aspect of guitar playing, saying, "I can't stress the importance of rhythm enough. For me, it's better to get a cool rhythm going and then figure the notes out later when you think about what emotion you want to convey to the listener. Is it super evil? If not, use it as a stepping stone to your next idea, and eventually you'll have 123 different riffs at your disposal. It's like a painting, you start with an idea, which is a rhythm, and then you use musical pencils to draw your idea. For me, the sketch is the root notes, and the melody is how you fill it out, where the emotion of the song comes from. Listen to the intro to Blood and Thunder, which Bram Taylor actually came up with, but he didn't write it on guitar, he just hummed me the riff. It has to have that rhythm, otherwise it completely loses its feel." Guitar virtuoso Joe Satriani explained why he started wearing sunglasses and how it ended up being one of the staple marks of his image. In a recent interview he said, "The sunglasses thing happened as a joke. I surprised my band on tour by showing up with my head shaved, and they were so horrified that they said I had to wear a hat and glasses or they wouldn't stop laughing on stage. Then I realized that having that curtain to hide behind allowed me to be more creative and feel less self-conscious." My buddy Sammy Hagar feels the same way. He says he can't go on stage without sunglasses because he's so embarrassed to be a singer. He's the last person you'd expect to think that way. He was also asked to single out his least favorite aspect of showbiz, which he replied, saying, "Being around people. It's a major drawback, right? Like, if my manager called me and said, 'You'll be meeting 50 people every day before the show,' immediately I'd start getting butterflies in my stomach. It's silly. I mean, I'm a grown-up, And I've been doing this my whole life, and still my initial reaction is, don't do it. Even back in 2015 when the New Zealand Herald explained why he would rarely ever take his glasses off, this is what he said: "I rarely look out at the crowd. It makes me very uncomfortable to look directly into the face of the crowd. I'm in my own little world, playing my guitar. I play from the heart, but it's very insular. I think it was just a hangover thing that turns into an everyday thing. Now, wherever you go, everybody's got camera phones taking your picture, and you just end up never taking the shades off.